Hey everyone, it's Wingspan TT, and if you're watching, you know what time it is. No, it's not time to flush the toilet. Your brother is still taking a shower, you insensitive prick. It's time for Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013. Alright everyone, we are here at the grand finals of the top tier Tactics January Duels 2013. WMG has no honor. Where are my win pants tournament? It's KingKang versus the Hassle. And of course the Hassle going into this with Obedient Dead. KingKang making it through with Crosswinds. These are decks that since the inception of Duels 2013 have been strong decks. Never super overpowered, never underpowered, but very versatile decks. Decks that can be changed around to face, pretty much every threat in the game. Decks that have cards that must be stopped, otherwise, they're definitely going to end the game. And I can't say I'm particularly surprised to see these players make it this far with these decks. One, because they're good players, and two, because the decks are obviously strong decks that are adaptable throughout the tournament. We did see, of course, that Aura Servants and Celestial Light made it very close to winning this tournament. Ultimately, with Aura Servants taking third place, although I still believe that Anuz threw away one of those games that he could have easily won, tied it up at 2-2, gone into a fifth game, and possibly come in third with bronze. But here we got an early start with the Hassle, getting his 2-2 unblockable guy on the board. We have the little hatchling on the other side that's going to make it impossible for the Hassle to get plays through without the extra 1 mana to prevent the counter spell, because if that little hatchling gets sacked, that means the Hassle spell won't be cast unless he pays 1 extra mana. So it's basically an effective small counter spell on the board. He's getting his mage, Azure Mage, on the board, and it looks like he is just not really... It doesn't look like the Hassle has a lot of experience recording video on PC, but I do want to say I greatly appreciate the fact that he's willing to record this. And obviously, yes, the aspect ratio is a little fucked up. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care about the aspect ratio. I just care that we're able to see this awesome footage for these last games after 99 players went into this tournament. Only one of them is going to go out the grand prize winner. Of course, they're both going to be winners in some regards. They're both going to be winning Magic cards, DLC deck packs, and of course your prestige, your honor, your I guess applause. I would hope that after such a good game you're applauding at home. See how this all goes down. I personally have no clue how this is going down. I'm watching as you watch it, but we see early on here Necrotal. This is a tough choice. The Hassle decides to kill off the Azure Mage to kill Kangsta's long-term ability to generate card advantage. So he had to choose there. Does he kill Kangsta's ability to counter for 1 to force spike him, or does he kill the long-term card advantage for Azure Mage, even though Kang does not have the 4 requisite mana to activate the 2/1 creature yet? He swings in again for 1. Of course, this is the smart play, knowing he has no intention whatsoever of leaving back his hatchling to block. He's just going to swing in for 1. We have the Shade being dropped off the top, and I know these guys had a lot of problems picking up a time to play, so I appreciate the effort that went into this to make this match happen. He does have Demonic Tutor. He could play it. Of course, there's a threat of the counter spell from Kangsta on the other side of the board. There's always the idea of, like, do you use Demonic Tutor early in the game, or do you wait until you know what you actually need? Because it's very possible he could cast it now. He's got decent options in his hands. He's got removal, he's got 2 removal spells, he's got another Shade, another creature, so there's no real purpose here. He's going to bounce his own creature so that it doesn't get sacked. I don't really know what's going to happen here. I guess he's going to be... That's it. I'm sorry. I thought he had cast the one where everyone had to sack a creature. No, he cast Murder on the Fogbank. Fogbank was going to be preventing huge amounts of damage, and I guess it is still going to be preventing huge amounts of damage. Now, of course, Innocent Blood is not going to be casted by the Hassle because he's not interested in losing either of these creatures. Although, personally, I think using the Innocent Blood might be a good play. Get the hatchling off the board. I guess getting rid of Fogbank would be more powerful. Force Kangsta to make a hard decision. But now we have Drake tokens going down. All of a sudden, Innocent Blood's not looking so good because he could just choose to sack a token whenever he wants. Now he's hitting his 5 land drop. Of course, he's got his medallion on the board, so he really has 6 mana. Diabolic Tutor could go for 3. He could get whatever he wants. What will he take? I would personally consider Massacre Worm. You got all these creatures on the other side of the board. You can wipe them all out, assuming, yeah, he's got the mana to do it. He could get 4 spiked, but of course, if he gets a single land drop, he's safe. We did see the Massacre Worm there. I would also not be surprised to see something like Infect to wipe the board clean, or just something really nasty. You know, if there's any other creatures, but he does go for the Massacre Worm. Of course, is one of the most ridiculous creatures ever printed, in my opinion. 6 mana for 6/5. When it comes to the board, all the opponent's creatures get -2/-2. And guess what? Whenever a creature your opponent controls dies, that opponent loses 2 life. Could play Innocent Blood, no point in doing it. He could drop the Shade, but it's just going to get countered by the Spiketail Hatchling. Kang now sitting on 4 mana. He's got all kinds of options, but 5 mana is where things get really scary. For most of the decks in the game, actually, 5 mana is a really scary point. You see the Worm here is at 6 mana, but with the Medallion on the board, it's effectively 5 mana. We all know that for Crosswinds, seeing the Panoptic Mirror, Time Warps, seeing any of those shenanigans happen at 5 mana, very scary. He's going to swing with everything in the air for 5 damage, bring down to 12. Of course, he does not know what's coming for him. Now, of course, the hassle, I wouldn't necessarily take that to mean it is safe to play Massacre Worm, because we know he's sitting on several cards in hand, 5 cards in hand, and 4 mana, and Spiketail available to Force Spike. There could be a cancel in there, a mana leak, and sorry, there's some kind of bug there with the graphics. That's just something that came through when when I got sent the footage, so I don't know what's going on. Now KangSta has to figure out, do I counter this thing? Personally, if I had a counter in hand, I don't think I'd counter. I would feel like, alright, I'd rather chuck something that's not so useful. Let's see what he gets rid of. It's going to be very telling. I can guarantee it's not an island, because if he had the islands, he would have played him already. He's sitting on 5 spells. There goes Talrand. But I think, I guess that was a good call. I think playing Talrand right now would have been really risky. I personally would not have cast Talrand. And here, this is again, do you let the Shade hit the board? Well, I guess he's still sitting on Fog Bank, so he can't be that nervous. He's like, alright, I have Fog Bank, so I can drop, you know, I can drop Fog Bank, block the Shade all day long, not too afraid of it. It really comes down to what else is in his hand. How is he going to spend his other 4 mana? Does he want to bluff a counterspell or has a real counterspell? If he's got a mana leak, he could drop the Fog Bank. He's leaving back blockers. And I don't really know what he is playing to block. He's, I don't know what. He's at 8 life. I guess he does have to block something. And I think that that was possibly a bad call here. I think the Hassle should have taken the damage to the face, not killed that thing off. Plus, if he drops Massacre Worm, that's 2 less damage the Massacre Worm's going to do. So maybe I'm not seeing something completely, but I really feel like the Hassle shouldn't have blocked. He should have gone down to 10 life, and then Massacre Worm next turn. Kang is sitting here. Really no idea what to do. I guess he doesn't have a sleep. Ooh, the Mutilate comes off the top of the deck. That could clear everything off the board, including, of course, Hassle's own creatures. I really feel like that would be a desperate move, you know, depending on what happens. If a Bribery or something else hits the board, that Mutilate is going to be really important. Massacre Worm still looking like it's not a good option because it can still get countered. KangSta sitting on so much mana, and here we go. He's going to swing in here. The Hassle's going to swing in. Of course, you have the unblockable creature. Not going to happen. I really feel like unless KangSta has some really cool bounce trick or something, he really needed to play that Fog Bank last turn. I don't know what's going on. He could at least pretend that he has a counter spell, pretend he has a Dispel. He could, of course, always have a Repulse. He could wait until the Shade gets pumped up with like 6 mana and then repulse it back to his hand. Waste the Hassle's entire turn. He is double blocking. He's doubling down to kill this creature. I don't know if it's worth it. I guess it's worth it. And now the Hassle has to decide how much mana is he going to spend on the Shade. He's going to fight in the Shade like Leonidas here. He's going to fight for 0 mana. 1, 2. He's going to leave 2, leave 4 mana open, giving him the ability to still Mutilate. I guess, I don't know what his plan is here. I guess he's just going to go, alright, 2 mana. I guess, okay, there was some weird screen bug there. And swinging for 4, 3, 6 damage going through. The clock is getting paused once again. He's just testing the waters here. I guess he's waiting for something to come through. And here's the Repulse. Exactly like I said before. But maybe he meant to keep 2 mana open so he could recast and then took a Shade with the Emerald and his 1 mana. But he forgets the Emerald only reduces the colorless mana cost and spell. So he actually does not have enough mana left to recast the Shade. He's not casting the Shade this turn. Nothing is going to be happening. I feel like that was a misplay on his part. I feel like you had to either leave 2 mana open or 0 mana open, and he just did not let it happen. So KangSta here, you know, he's got a little bit of a defense. He could easily drop His Fog Bank back down for defense. He could put something on the board, get some kind of board presence. Now they're sitting here. He can't block. He might as well swing in. He is on a 3-turn clock. The Hassel is on a 6-turn clock. Make that a 5-turn clock starting now. And I guess unless he has a counter spell, I just think he's got to drop that Fog Bank. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. He goes in for the 5th land. Does he have Panoptic Meter? Does he have Bribery? Does he have something that's going to turn this game around? Because right now we can see the Hassel's hand. It looks dangerous. Here comes Archaeomancer, and ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to be game over. Archaeomancer is going to be hitting the board. He has no protection anymore. He's got nothing. No counter spells. No counter magic. 1 mana left. There's nothing he can really do that's going to do any real damage. And now the Massacre Worm is just going to hit for massive damage. Of course, he goes swinging first. Massacre Worm hitting the board. There's no way he can counter this. Kang's this game's over. He's going to be losing 4 life, going down to 2, and of course, the now unblockable, not that it even matters, there's no blockers left on the board, damage coming through to finish off the game. So, you know, I want to say it's a close match. I feel that Kangsta was just a little bit behind most of the match. The Hassel had some very lucky draws. He had some really good draws. He had a good call to get Massacre Worm with his mana. I don't know if I can agree with that double block, throwing away his counterspell on the board just to stop 2 damage when he still had a Fog Bank in play. But now we're going to go directly into game 2. Going directly into game 2. So it is 1-up. Hassel is 1-up. 1-0 Hassel over Kangsta. Does he take this hand with 2 land? No, he mulligans. Oh, going to 1 land hand. And he's deciding to keep it. It's got some good cards, but everything in here other than Innocent Blood costs like 3 or more mana. That's going to be really rough for the Hassel. He does not draw, and he skips into it. He's going to play his Swamp in the second main. And I know it doesn't really matter. And in regular Magic, I would say, sure, do that. But in Duels of Planeswalkers, I would never trust the game engine. You never know when there's going to be some weird lag or when the timer runs out because of lag or something like that. I always play the lands on the first main phase just because when you need, at least when you need the land drops early game. Late game, you're sitting on land, you're not sure if you want to keep it in your hand or not. Fine. But this is really painful. I would cast the Innocent Blood right now. Cast the Innocent Blood. He's going to go for it. Get the Fog Bank out of there. At least get that off the board. That is something that's hard to deal with if it can't be dealt with early on. The Nantuko Shade sitting there taunting him at 2 mana. The Jet Medallion sitting here taunting them at 2 mana. The Murderer. He's got Exsanguinate, Befoul, some other cool cards. And Favorable Winds hits the board. Obviously going to be overall favorable. We see that Kang has a lot of Talrand's Invocations in his deck. Here we have the second land, and I would immediately, I don't know, this would be a really rough call. Play the Shade, play the Jet. I guess I would play the Shade since there's no blockers on the board. It's better to get the Shade on the board, get some damage in while you can. You can always play the Jet Medallion second turn if you don't get anything else. Of course, if he did get a land, I guess he would have 3 mana. That means next turn he could spend 2 mana to play the Jet, but yes, because it's not colorless, he wouldn't be able to play the Shade. And here we have 2 3/3s hitting the board. This is really bad news. Really bad news for the Hassel. It's not looking good for him. He had such luck early game, and now if he had that Jet Medallion, he could have a flyer on the board. It could have been a 3/2 flyer, Liliana Spectre, being played right now because of Jet Medallion, which would be able to trade for one of those guys and make him discard a card to go from 3 cards down to 2 cards. I didn't get to see if Kangsta took a mulligan or not, but I don't believe he did. Here, he's probably just going to swing in for 6. I would just swing in for 6. Absolutely merciless. Who knows? He might have another Talrand's Invocation in his hand, which would be pretty brutal. I feel like this is swift justice. And Panoptic Meter hitting the board. Now, the Hassel is really, really fucked. I just hate to say a player's just really fucked, but he's fucked. This is bad. This is really bad. And now this is a really hard game to play. Do you befoul one of his lands and hope he doesn't have the mana to use Time Warp? Do you use Murder and get rid of one of the tokens? Do you cast a Spectre and hope he discards something decent? I feel like your only option here is to drop the Spectre, get another creature on the board, hope to outright some damage, swing with the Nantoku in for 3 damage, and hope you get a lucky Exsanguinate or Corruption before he gets some kind of infinite combo on you. Let's see what the Kangsta chucks. He's only got 2 cards in hand. He decides to get rid of Disperse. That's really rough. I feel like Disperse would be a really good target to throw on Panoptic Meter, which means whatever's in his hand, he thinks is going to make a better target for Panoptic Meter than a free bounce for the rest of the game. So, is it Time Warp? Is it something else? Here we're going to see the pause. He's going to imprint on Panoptic Meter for 1 mana. Alright. So here we go for 1 mana. He's going to be getting a sleight of hand every turn, which is going to be absolutely huge. He doesn't have the Time Warp yet, but he's digging into his deck 2 cards at a time plus his normal card draw. So he's effectively digging through his deck 3 cards every turn for the rest of the game. That's going to be very, very hard for the Hassle to deal with. And even though Kangsta is now behind, he's only got 2 cards in his hand. He does have the life lead. He does have the creature advantage on the board. I mean, yes, the Hassle's got his pumpable Shade, but the Hassle doesn't have enough mana to be able to afford to pump his Shade every turn. I feel like leaving his creature back to block was a mistake here, especially because of how much removal is in the Kangsta's deck. Leaving a creature back to block seems like a bad idea. It seems like it's just better to swing him, because you never know when he's going to wipe the board with, you know, Infect, or I guess Infect wouldn't work here, but you get the idea, when his removal is going to kick you in the ass. And I really feel like it possibly would have been beneficial for Kangsta to murder that blocker first and then swing him with both. I feel like the Hassle, I feel like the Hassle absolutely needs to get the damage game in here. And now he's murdering. Why is he murdering now? And he didn't swing him with his other creature if he knew he was going to murder. Maybe he didn't know. I don't know. I just feel like that's a really bad decision. He could have easily gotten another free 2 damage. And sorry, ladies and gentlemen, before I said that the Shade needs to hit the board, it would have been a 3-2. I was mistaking favorable wins for the gravitational shift, thinking that it affected every creature on the board when it really only affects Kangsta's creatures. Here we have the Sleight of Hand, of course, coming back, and every Sleight of Hand that happens is going to bring Kangsta 1 more card closer to Rite of Replication, Time Warp, Bribery, something absolutely sick that he can imprint on that Panoptic Meter. I do want to say, regarding the bronze match, this just occurred to me. Someone had commented on the bronze match that one of the players was a noob for holding lands in their hand, that they missed their land drop. But I do want to comment that, of course, having land, and of course, here you can get Tolerance Invocation back and print that. Anyway, keeping lands in your hand is not necessarily noobish, especially late game. When you draw cards late game, a good player is going to be counting the cards in your hand. Right now, it really makes a big deal. The Kangsta's got 3 cards in hand. That means, all right, the Hassle knows for a fact that one of the cards is Tolerance Invocation. That means there's only 2 cards in his hand that he doesn't have information about. They could be counter spells, they could be mana leaks, they could be something. But for all the Hassle knows, they could also be 2 islands. Kangsta could totally be bluffing, sitting on absolutely nothing. And that's why it's important to keep lands in your hand late game. If you don't have X damage spells, if you don't have something that you can just tap out, I'm going to tap 15 lands and do something outrageous with them, there's no point to playing every land late game. Especially because in certain matchups, if cards are going to make you discard cards, it'd be better to have a land you don't need in your hand than having only 1 card in your hand, which is eminently important. And here we see, of course, the Hassle going in with a very careful swing. I don't know why he's not swinging with his 2/1 Spectre. Is there something I'm missing? Why doesn't he want the free 2 damage? This is now several turns where he could have gotten 2 damage. Kangsta could have been now below 8 life. And when, you know, he's got Corrupt in his hand, Hassle's got Corrupt in his hand, he has game-ending cards. And sure, he's had bad luck drawing into lands, he's had bad luck drawing into swamps since the beginning of the game, but I just feel it's been a couple misplays from the Hassle to not swing in. I don't see what he gains from not swinging in with his Spectre. Here, Kangsta here, again, just keeps digging into his deck, trying to find the combo pieces he needs, but now I feel like it's all but locked out. I don't know why this block is happening. He's taking this block before it's lethal damage. Why is he just throwing it away? See, the thing is, when you chump block, it's always beneficial to chump block as late as possible, because whenever you chump block, if you chump block a 3/3 creature now, or 10 turns from now, you're only going to prevent the damage once, and typically the damage gets worse the later into the game it goes. So if you chump block early, you're basically throwing damage away. B-Foul has to happen on Talrand right now. It's not even a goddamn option. Of course, here comes the counter spell. Not even surprised if the counter spell comes. Kangsta's been digging through his deck all game. Of course, I also wouldn't be... here we go. Disperse. He's going to bounce his Talrand, and we knew he had Disperse the whole time because I believe... No, I was wrong. He returned Talrand's Invocation. He still had his original Disperse in his library, and now there's 2 3/3s on the board. And that free damage he could have got through looks even better now. I guess it's possible that the Hassle was afraid that an instant was going to come down, a 3/3 creature was going to come and block his guy, but hey, he threw his guy away anyway for damage that wasn't going to happen. He wants to see here if Kangsta's going to bite, block the Shade, trade for 3/3. Personally, I would just trade. What other opportunities is Kangsta going to have to get rid of the Shade anytime later in the game? and I just don't know. Here, is he going to have a different imprint than the ones on the board? He's got sleight of hand, totally possible. He could imprint something else in his hand. Is it going to be something? No, he's going to take the sleight of hand. He's sitting on 7 lands. He could easily do something absolutely brutal here. Gonna weed through top of his deck. He's down to 43 cards, 41 turns away from milling himself. Of course, I don't anticipate that's the way this game's gonna end. We got these people basically sitting on equal life totals. He's got to decide how he's gonna block. Of course, he has a lot of information in his hand that Kangsta doesn't know about. He now has to choose. Do I block this 1/2? Do I trade away this amazing creature to get rid of an Archaeomancer? I guess not. Not gonna happen. Hassel going down to 1 life. Really risky here. Any flyer hits the board, he's got to turn this around this turn because he can't block the 2 flyers. Here we go, Talrand coming back. No big surprise there. Another island, and then Talrand's invocation to put 3 guys on the board. Now, of course, this is a little bit risky because if Mutilate hits the board, and of course, there we go. There is no Mutilate. There is no secret thing. There is a Corrupt. Now, Corrupt could hit someone, could hit Talrand, get him off the board. But I just don't see this game turning around. It's not going to be for enough damage. It's only going to be for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So even though he can cast Corrupt, normally with his 6 casting cost, it's only going to hit for 5 damage. Not going to protect him against the brutal area assault that's coming in through the air. This is like the bombing of Dresden coming down from the blue side of the board. And it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, I don't see. Is there even a point to Kangsta blocking at this point? I mean, I guess he could block just to be safe. I feel like he's going to block just to be safe. Force Hassel to spend some mana, so he's going to either have to choose between saving his shades or using some post-combat trick. It looks like he's just going to do this, kill off Talrand, kill off a random token. I do feel it's a really bad decision to block with Talrand. Why not block with a token? Exsanguinate for 3, bringing Kangsta down to 6, bringing Hassel for 4, but of course 4 life is not going to be up, and GG! There we go, there's the GUG. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's game 1. Game 2 is going Kang and Hassel tied, 1-1 each, going into this tournament. This is best of 5, so the first 1 of 3 is going to win. I think this is a really cool match. It's really cool to see these monocolored decks going up. Duels of the Titans, duels of the Planeswalkers, here on Top Tier Tactics, TopTierTactics.com. I'm Wingspan TT. I'll be coming back with you for the later games. Cheers!